Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast with Borg, Betz, and a Baller.
Welcome in. It's Wednesday, July 31st on the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. I'm Kyle Borganoni, and I'm joined by two ballers today, Mike Wright and Jason Moore.
Oh, we're ballers.
Yes, sir.
Just making it rain over here.
Yeah, Betsy's becoming a dad times 3, and so that freaking lazy bum took off work.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Like, we're not dads times 3 over here. Come on. So what? You're having a baby. You know what I mean? Like, get on the field.
Look, the day of my first child's birth in hospital, right? Baby has been
big important moment.
Baby has been born. We've moved now from the birthing room, whatever, to the recovery room.
Sure.
I don't know. They move your rooms.
Right.
You get a bigger room.
You change.
And I got a note that I had a very important, huge meeting for school. I went, guys. I went.
That's good.
I had to go because actually they were shutting down my location. So it was a pretty good thing that I went to the meeting. And I'm like, oh, well.
I'm going to be
my point being, heart of a champion.
Yeah.
You do what you got to do.
My hope here was that you were going to say I was handed a note. It was a trade. And I had to excuse myself from the room to go look at my fantasy league. No, Betz is having his third kid. He has a wonderful time off. And so now our show for this week, maybe a couple weeks here, we'll see how long, but it's just so clearly upgraded. I mean, it's unbelievable. 2 ballers. Yes. You always want 2 ballers.
And me.
And
Kyle.
And Kyle.
I love you guys too.
It's like, Kyle won't get this, but Hamilton, the Schuyler sisters.
Yeah.
He's like,
and Kyle. Yes.
Even better, knowing my history with whatever that is. Whatever that show is that I apparently fell asleep in, Hamilton. I will say, Jason, you do know what Betz is going through. You went through the same exact thing of twins and then another.
Yeah. Honestly, should everything be good and healthy, it is, oh my gosh, so easy. It's so, the third, when it's a single child, it's like, wait, I don't have to do everything? This is so easy.
So, yeah, if you want to berate Betz with just like, hey, dude, this is easy. We've all done this parenting. Like, you can do this. On this show, we will be talking SuperFlex tiers. So we're going through the quarterbacks, kind of assessing where everybody lies. We did this last year. And a couple of the tiers I will bring up. This player was here last year, and then they've kind of jumped or they've regressed a certain amount. Now, with quarterbacks, a lot of times they just kind of hold their value. Mahomes, I was looking at it. He's been a top 2 dynasty quarterback in ADP for, 6 years in a row. And that's not going to change. Like, Mahomes could get hurt. Hopefully not. And yet he'll still be in this elite tier, right?
100%.
Yes.
There are the elites of the elites that are injury proof. And it's like the actual NFL where, you go, oh, you're playing on the franchise tag. You shouldn't even worry about that if you're an actual elite NFL quarterback. You can get injured. You're going to get paid. You know what I mean? Like, there's not a, Dak had his foot come off of his leg and got a bag of money because it's like, what are you going to do? Not have a great quarterback? So yeah, and I hope on this Dynasty episode that we got the SuperFlex bros out there coming in and listening, because I think y'all need our help a little bit.
Oh,
I do.
Jason
I know
calling out.
we get guff because we don't always talk SuperFlex, and I know a lot of people, especially on certain platforms, when you play, every league's a SuperFlex, and that's not really that's not the majority of dynasty leagues that the SuperFlex bros believe it is. I love SuperFlex leagues. I'm in SuperFlex leagues. It is growing. They're great. It's an awesome way to play. There's nothing against that, but I do think that the people that are in that bubble, man, do they overdo it with quarterbacks. And same with the tight end premium leagues. Y'all are overdoing it. You're like, no. Do you understand how important tight ends are in this league? I'm like, yes, I do. Do you understand?
They're premium.
They're premium. Do you understand what an advantage it gives you when you let everyone else overdraft tight ends and you grab depth at running back and wide receiver still? It reminds me of years ago when people used to freak out about 6-point per touchdown quarterback leagues. Like when it was like getting into late round quarterback drafting, and it was because a decade ago quarterbacks were all in the are they the first round, second round, are they the first pick overall, and then people
Michael Vick was the 101.
Mm-hmm. And people,
average, but there was talk of him. Should he be the 101 in drafts?
Yeah, and as late round quarterback became more and more accepted and more common and a winning strategy, people would be like, you don't understand. My league is 6-point per quarterback touchdown. It's like, yeah, no, we do understand.
We got you, man. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I see the landscape of people bringing in questions all the time for the show. And I also think about it from the perspective, like I get to do a lot of DFS for our company and a lot of best ball, which are predominantly one quarterback games. I mean, DFS is played exclusively as one quarterback. So when you think about the majority of people and what they're used to, just the wide audience, one quarterback is what they play in on a DFS format and everything else. But I think as we go through these tiers, the bigger question that people want to ask is, how do I value these players? And so I see a lot of people asking, should I tier up here? Like I have Jordan Love and I have him in this tier, but man, I really want Josh Allen. So what would it take for me to get up there to get a Josh Allen if I had Jordan Love? So we'll talk about some of those scenarios and those trades. Want to highlight in the 2024 Ultimate Draft Kit, we've got some goodies that we've been rolling out, and I have in front of me Jeremy and I's Dynasty team. We made some trades recently, but I have in the Draft Analyzer.
You mean your Dynasty team?
Our Dynasty team and what we think. I'm holding strong on that one, by the way.
Yeah, you better. For Jeremy's sake.
Little roots. Oh. I got to say strong. I will say, Jason, you apparently like our team the most.
I do love your team.
Based on the projections. And it's great when I'm looking at our team and kind of assessing where we're at, where we're strong. Like our quarterbacks in a one-quarterback league, Jordan Love, Jayden Daniels, Kirk Cousins. We went back and forth if we were going to upgrade. I was preparing for this episode, like, man, maybe we should get like a Josh Allen or somebody else. Like, I feel really good about our depth, and the analyzer says we're at an A+. So we're killing it with quarterback. We need some running back help, and that's very apparent. We made a trade last week for Javonte Williams. I would say it was pretty even trade. We gave some future capital, but
yeah, you're trying to call your shot. I mean, it won't be even in the end because I think Javonte Williams is either, he himself is either going to be a home run or a flame out, just an ice worthless pick. And so it's just a matter of which Javonte Williams do you get this season. You will have either dominated the trade or you will have traded some assets for a shot at dominating that failed. But yeah, the Draft Analyzer is a great – so we've got the Ultimate Draft Kit. Everyone should go get it at udkplus.com. You can grab the Ultimate Draft Kit. It's got all of the things you need for your regular leagues. But it's got dynasty rankings, startup rankings, rookie rankings, and it's got the Draft Analyzer. And so if you're in dynasty leagues, you can plug in your dynasty rosters, get a grade, get a game plan, get told what your strengths and weaknesses are, dunk on friends, get that grade. It's a really, really good resource. And with drafts coming up here, we're basically in August now. Your drafts are approaching. You want to get it. So you can go to ultimatedraftkit.com or udkplus.com and grab the Ultimate Draft Kit.
And that leads into a quick question, because one of my takeaways from analyzing my team was looking at certain players that I thought I was really excited about. And then when we really plug in the projections and look at the depth of our team, I go, I don't know if I'm really going to use this player. So this question comes in from YouTube from Jeff Farrell. He asked, who's a player that you were excited about in the beginning of the offseason that you have significantly cooled on as time has gone on? And the player for me was Troy Franklin. And I know Jason,
you jerk. Yeah, so in our docs in preparation from this, when we're preparing for the show a while ago, he says, "Hey, the quick question is going to be this question," and I say, "Put Troy Franklin in for me," because that was the clear and obvious answer for me. And he's like, "Already have him." You
now
jerk.
You were willing to already publicly fall on that sword?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Don't hear what I'm not saying. I hold out hope.
Yes.
I am rooting for Troy Franklin.
Which we all do that.
I still 100% believe in the talent that I saw on film at Oregon. I think he is electrically fast, faster than his 40 time. His body type might not work in the NFL, but I believe he's got the dog in him. I love Troy Franklin. But when you drop to day 3 and you get put on a team where you are not invested in, and Here's the point for all the, we make all the comments about draft capital mattering. Here's why it matters. If Troy Franklin was drafted in the second round by the same Denver Broncos, he would be running with the ones right now because they have to. They've got to get him involved. Because he was a day 3 pick and he was in the 4th round, he's not running with the ones. He's got to make his mistakes over there. He's got to earn it. And look, the occasional great day 3 guy just earns it. Puka Nacua just comes in and dominates, and you can't keep him off the field. Those are special, elite, outlier players. But it is so not the norm. You want your players to have the opportunity to fail with the ones and be given grace versus saying, dude, you have to just dominate if you want to play over Tim Patrick.
And just to back you up, Jay, here, over the past 5 years, 83% of top 24 wide receiver finishers, 83% are day 1 or day 2 picks.
Yeah, exactly. And Kyle, I'm sure you've got a million stats to talk about why Troy Franklin has fallen from grace for you, because you loved him too, right?
Oh, I loved his tape. And I think what you're doing is something I'm trying to do in my process. It's okay to say, I loved his tape, I love this player, and I loved his metrics. Like yards per out run against man and zone, he killed it. And you can also hold intention. There's a great deal that he's going up against. And one of those things which I think stinks is Josh Reynolds just always gets on the field wherever he goes.
Yeah, he does.
Like,
Josh Reynolds is the ultimate reality versus fantasy player.
For sure.
In fantasy, he's just a nuisance. He is a gnat. And then in reality, teams just are like, oh, this is a good player. We got to get him on the field.
Yeah, I don't know if PFF grades wide receiver blocking. But if they do, I have to imagine Josh Reynolds is way up there. You remember that block he laid out for Amon-Ra last year? It was like, Amon-Ra got a touchdown because Josh Reynolds was downfield going, "You shall not pass."
Yeah, random that you say that because Brandon Ayuk was number 1 in run blocking, Jake Bobo number 2, and Juwan Jennings number 3 at wide receiver. I was looking at that yesterday.
Yeah. Okay,
I know.
You're
San Francisco. Juwan was on San Francisco last year, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, they got a type over there.
Yeah.
Kyle Shanahan likes the guys that are just men.
It's gonna rough you up.
Yeah.
So I'll just put a bow on this with Franklin because with him,
Dante Pettis didn't work.
Yeah.
Dante Pettis was a good wide receiver. He just was a
wrong team.
Weakling blocker.
Oh man, I think it's just looking at your pre-draft evaluation and being able to hold it with an open hand. I've been burned on players that I loved beforehand. I won't name Hakeem Butler or Terrace Marshall Jr. and say players that, are really fun jokes in our Slack channel nowadays. But I'm able to look at Troy Franklin now and go, I just don't. There's so many things that aren't probably going to work. And so I'm willing to trade him. We did trade him away and got some picks that can help us right now. So Troy Franklin's my answer.
All right.
Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I'll hop in. I'm going to bring up another young guy, right? This is a Dynasty show, so this is really changing for Dynasty perspectives. It's Kendre Miller, a player that I absolutely loved.
It's so sad.
And I still love, we saw very, very little from Kendre Miller last year in his rookie season, the Saints running back, who was a rookie. He was injured most of the year. Now, in the very last week of the season, when most people have stopped watching because it's week 18 and fantasy leagues are over, you have him go out there, and he got 13 carries for 73 yards at 5.6 a clip, had a great fantasy performance, scored a touchdown, looked like the player he is. Kendre Miller's a good player, and so I was high on him because you can make an easy case, right? Jamal Williams is toast. Mm-hmm. He is burnt toast. I love Jamal Williams, awesome dude. Teams like him, awesome dude, but he's done. He's expired. The milk has curdled.
Oh, no.
Last year, last year he was 2.96.
The milk has gone bad.
He was 2.96 yards per touch, not just yards per carry. Dead last among qualifying running backs. He's done. So all you got to do is beat him, and then if something should happen to Alvin Kamara,
the logic got a really made talented, sense.
The logic made sense. Here's why I've really cooled on him. I've cooled on him because of Dennis Allen, who I hate, the head coach of the Saints.
You have heated up, and not in a good way.
Yes, I have heated up on Dennis Allen. That dude is such a jerk at the podium, and this is I want to make it clear. Almost my entire hatred for Dennis Allen is his persona at the podium. That's it. I just watch how he talks about players, watch how he fires other coaches, watch how he skirts every blame, watch he's just this old school. You have not – oh, man, he irks me. He drives me mad. And the thing about it is he acts like he is a legitimate head coach, which I know he is one of the 32 head coaches of the NFL. But you got gifted this job that you would never have had. You weren't trying out for this job and interviewing and getting the teams lined up to get you. Sean Payton gifted you this job, and you've done nothing with it, even though you had a very talented roster. And then you sit there at the podium and act like none of it is your fault and everybody else sucks. So he was asked about players. He was not even asked about Kendre Miller. He was just asked about some players, and I forget the exact question, but it was not the interviewer never brought up Kendre Miller's name, and he talked about, well, Kendre's got the hamstring, so look, that's a player who's going to have to figure out how to stay healthy because it's hard to make the team when you're in the training room all the time.
That
Meanwhile,
sounds
you got
like an and one T-shirt. It's hard to make the team if you're not in training room.
Yeah,
like
and this is that type of coach that's like, dude, this does not work. Well, you're just a pissy pants, man. You're just a piss. Go piss in your pants, because you look at the Harbaughs, right? Great coaches, coaches. Harbaugh's up there at the podium, and he's talking about how, look, I think Huge is getting a bad rap. I think Quentin Johnston's been one of our best players. You got Rashad Bateman getting that love, getting that pat on the butt from the Harbaughs. You know, it's like they're trying to talk their players up. This guy's like, I don't even know how he's going to make the team. He's always in the training room, and it's not good for my job. I'm going to lose my job because I need him out there on the field. You suck. Anyways,
Jason,
I apologize for my emotion.
Okay, just real quick, because this is important stuff here. This is hard-hitting stuff. Where would you put him on the rank of coaches that you have disliked the most since doing this podcast? Obviously, we've talked about Adam Gase, we've talked about Arthur Smith, but those are fantasy-related things.
Those are fantasy-related things, and I actually really like Arthur Smith. Like I love making fun of Arthur Smith. I hated the frustration he caused for fantasy, but I actually like Arthur Smith, the man. Mike's got a stink face on, but like I appreciate how he answers questions. I think he is, whether his logic is correct or incorrect, he always has reasons, and he explains his reasons. He doesn't discount the questions. He answers them. He gives the reasons for them, and I think they're logical, even when I disagree with them. Adam Gase sucked. Adam Gase is like this is the new Adam Gase.
Have you seen all like Lev Bell? Lev Bell has been on a rampage
I love
on
it.
Twitter, like, and it keeps popping back up of making fun of Adam Gase of like how like it's 3rd and long and they're calling these terrible dive run plays.
Well, it was 2nd and 10. That was what he was.
Okay.
He was saying he couldn't stand when they're in the huddle and they keep getting these 2nd and 10 dive plays, and then he's told by Adam Gase, I just need you to pick up 3 to make it manageable. It's like, wait, you're trying to get to 3rd and 7? This is the goal of the play call? Yeah, I mean that's how I feel about Dennis Allen, and I apologize to Dennis Allen and his family on a personal level.
You just don't
probably
like him
don't
on the podium.
deserve this, but
I just did the quick math. It looks like Dennis Allen is 24-46 as a head coach.
That sounds good.
He did have a winning season last year. So
Yeah,
I mean most of that is
he has a great defense. His defensive personnel, I think, is outstanding. So if he did not inherit a really good defensive line and a strong defense, here's what would have happened: the Saints would be better this year.
okay.
Because Dennis Allen wouldn't be their head coach.
Dude.
That's why.
But
anyways, bringing this all back to Kendre Miller. Players need opportunities, and
that's all Dennis Allen is saying.
And Kendre Miller is seemingly hated by Dennis Allen. And I don't think I think Dennis Allen will put Jamal Williams out there ahead of Kendre Miller. And if Kendre Miller doesn't get his shot in year 2, he's not going to get it in year 3, in year 4, and he's just going to be relegated. So from a dynasty perspective, a guy I was really hot and bothered for, a guy that I thought might be the future of the New Orleans Saints running game, looks to me like there is a greater than 50% chance that he will never be a thing ever. So he's someone I've cooled on, but it's not – I mean, it's a little due to him because of those injuries, right? Like, you know, he if you look back, he's definitely struggled with injuries. I mean, he was drafted injured. I think it was it an MCL Meniscus.
I think it was meniscus, if I remember correct.
During the draft, had a right knee sprain in preseason, a hamstring strain, and a high ankle sprain. So, I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't also be frustrated if I was Dennis Allen, but I sure as heck would handle it different. I wouldn't be a little baby boy at the podium.
I feel like I'm usually the one who gets really really mad at coaches.
You are. That's your.
So being on the other side of this brings me so much joy because when his name just gets mentioned and Jason his skin starts turning red and he gets angry.
I do. I get angry. I just feel like he doesn't.
Oh, it's great.
There's only 32 people that get this job. Like, let someone deserving have it.
Kendry Miller
All right.
is 22.2 years old. So he is like basically
for real.
Yeah, he's
Did
part
you say
of
22? Oh man.
Yeah, he's part of this class. So, but yes, I think for this season, Nick Underhill, everybody else has basically said like, hey, don't expect like a gradual incline where he's all of a sudden given the job like we thought he was.
Yeah, it can still work for Kendry, but it is the vibes are bad. The name I'm going to throw out, it's Zach Moss of the Cincinnati Bengals, previously of the Indianapolis Colts, previously of the Buffalo Bills. He is 26 and a half years old. He is entering year 5. The situation with him was, though, remembering last year, he was one of the best waiver wire pickups of the season because he eventually got the job while Jonathan Taylor Thomas was recovering from the injury. And Zach Moss played pretty well. Like
he did, my dude.
Like everything, it wasn't all just roses for Zach Moss, but he was getting it done for the most part. He was coming through with huge fantasy production. He's a great pass blocker among running backs with 60 or more pass blocks last year. He was number 1, and the Cincinnati Bengals are an offense we want to target. This is a high-powered offense. Joe Mixon has been great for fantasy football for years, despite my opinion of Joe Mixon being he's an average running back at best. I feel like you put a really good running back on this team, and we have a true superstar. But Joe Mixon was not far off from superstar fantasy football numbers.
He was a top 5 running back last year.
Zach Moss, he can definitely get this done. I don't know that I believe in Chase Brown. There is a Chase Brown hive out there, and I wasn't really a part of it. Chase Brown has a lot of the attributes I love, like being explosive. He's close to the size where I'm like, yeah, everything is good for Chase Brown, but the vibes were like Zach Moss is the guy. It was pretty quick in the free agency period, and if Zach Moss gets 80%, 85% of what Joe Mixon was getting for the Bengals, he's going to be great. And his ADP just kept staying low, and then I've been doing more ADP-based analysis, more just historical of like peripheral stuff. Like, okay, since 2014, 71 running backs have finished as a top 24 guy. The amount of players that the first time they ever did it in season 5, there's 3 of them. And that's what Zach Moss would be doing. So that like the historical trend is absolutely not. This is not going to work. Last year, I believed that Alexander Mattison could get it done. And should I have done this research in hindsight, he's one of those season 5 guys where it's like,
right.
The history is so, we knew things were against Mattison because he's later in his career, but I didn't realize how much it is against him. So that started to sway my opinion of Zach Moss. Okay, look, he's his own player, but history tends to repeat itself. And then we've got Chase Brown is getting a lot of run with the first team. The quote coming from the team of that Chase Brown could be the guy. I mean, they laid out all the possibilities, really. This wasn't just an endorsement of anyone, but it was Chase Brown might end up being the guy. And it's okay, that is now a probability that we have to factor into our decision-making of drafting these guys. I still think that they are both, talking redraft specifically, both of them are absolutely worth a shot because their ADP is still low. It's not an expensive player, kind of the way that Alexander Mattison was last year. But I have definitely cooled on Zach Moss where at the beginning of the process, it seemed like, how does this not work for Zach Moss despite the low ADP, and now I'm more of the side of it might work.
Let me put it into action then. Would you trade a second in Dynasty for Zach Moss?
I think if I'm a contending team and I need to shore up some running back depth, like this isn't a starter. This isn't, oh, dude, I don't have an RB2. I got to go do something. I'm not doing that for Zach Moss. But if you have two starters and the depth behind it is poor, then I'm willing to do that.
Yeah, I can say, I share the downgraded feelings and projections for Zach Moss that Mike does. My dynasty team is really, really, really good. I should be in the, look, it just is. I should be in the top 4 teams.
It was the extra really there.
But, so I should have a bottom 4 pick. And my running backs I've talked about on this show, right? Like I've got 3 studs. I got Bijan Brees and Travis Etienne. And behind them, I mean, it's Vidal Sassoon. We're talking nobody.
Man.
I have nobody behind them. An injury, a bye week. I need depth. And so if I could send my second-round pick that is almost a third-round pick, the shot at that hitting for the chance at a depth piece, that's where I would do it. But that's exactly what Mike's talking about. That's the type of team where it makes sense to take that shot at having hopefully a 2-year starter for a good offense.
Should the opportunity present itself? One team is saying you can get Zach Moss for your second. One team is saying you can get Chase Brown for your second. Where are you going to go?
I'm still on the Zach Moss. I believe, like I love the younger, explosive athlete that Brown is. Like that's usually the way I go. But following the money, the veteran team, I think that they're going to want the pass protection and the qualities that Zach Moss brings to their scheme. And in the long run, I think he'll be the leader of the timeshare. That's still my bet. It's just it used to seem like it was a done deal, and now it seems like, well, it's like 55-45.
Right.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that too, Jason. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right. Guys, we had a good little discussion there. I didn't know we were going to talk about Pissy Pants there. Pissy Pants Allen.
Don't say his name.
Yeah, he'll go again.
I'll start it up again. That man's got a family. Let me leave him alone.
All right, let's get into it.
Dynasty Rankings.
So as we've been doing the last couple episodes, we've been talking about tiers, and when we look at our rankings, you can find them in the Ultimate Draft Kit Plus. Understand that there are not real point projections when you're looking at 3, 4, 5 years down the road. It's really hard to be able to say this is what's going to happen for a player. For instance, T. Higgins. We can look at T. Higgins for this year. Who knows next year what team is going to be on. So for Dynasty, you're kind of creating tiers that are arbitrary. They're not all equal. And there's so many things we just don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. Kirk Cousins last year. We didn't know he was going to get hurt. We didn't know he was going to go to the Falcons. There's just so many things. So looking back at Dynasty rankings, quarterback is the position that the elites stay elite, and they stay there for a long time. It's very, very weird when someone gets elevated and all of a sudden they don't stay there. I did look back. Baker Mayfield was the QB2 in Dynasty startup ADP. He had 1 year under his belt.
Baker Mayfield is the reason that I am pretty much in Dynasty for where the Dynasty value is. I'm out on Jordan Love. Not like on redraft, I'm willing to make a bet because I believe he is legit. But everyone in the world believed Baker Mayfield, the number 1 overall pick, who brought the Browns back to relevance and tied the rookie touchdown record in fewer games. Like he was a done deal. So CJ Stroud.
It's also remembering part of the deal was Odell Beckham Jr. got traded to the Cleveland Browns, and you got to jump in your time machine.
Sure.
But this was when Odell Beckham still was perceived to be Odell Beckham making one-handed snags on Monday Night Football.
And Stephon Diggs just went to CJ Stroud, who is there's no chance, there is no world where he fails. That's the feeling. And so I am a little bit more afraid in dynasty leagues for those two players. You know, if you make a bet in redraft and you're wrong, whatever, you pivot, you move on. It's easy. But if you make a bet at a high ADP on Jordan Love or CJ Stroud, and they're not, you know, I'm more confident in Stroud than Love, but like I think both are good. I think everybody thinks both are good. But my point is, like, lessons have to be learned, and you've got to account for real life and crazy NFL things that happen.
Yeah, I'm looking at our 2 quarterback rankings right now for Dynasty startups, and Andy's a little bit more bullish on Jordan Love. And I know part of this is just an overall philosophy of how you draft in startups and where you take Jordan Love. So right now we have him as our 19th overall player, but there's other guys right around there: Jahmyr Gibbs, Puka Nacua, Christian McCaffrey. So in a Superflex league, what Jason's saying is like, okay, are you going to take Jordan Love with your second round pick, or are you going to have a building block wide receiver, or even say, hey, I'm going to compete right now with somebody like Christian McCaffrey? And I think you would say that's not even close.
That is not even close, and that is this is the best example. This is the number one best example. If you want to tell me Jordan Love versus Puka Nacua, if you're in a Superflex league, most people are going to take Jordan Love. They're so afraid of the quarterbacks running out, being depleted. Jordan Love is not as valuable as Puka Nacua in Dynasty fantasy football. I mean, the odds of, you know, one of those guys not being actually great at the position is much higher for Jordan Love. And so, yeah, I would much rather have a foundational young stud wide receiver than, I mean, you know, I'm still taking the top quarterbacks first. Like, I'm starting my Superflex draft with those tippy top quarterbacks. You know, if I've got Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes, those guys, those are the first picks, of course. But once you break down a tier and they're not guarantees, they're not like, oh, 100%, you have other 100% there. You know, you have other running backs and wide receivers that are 100%. And so I'm taking the 100%.
I want to do a quick conversation here because it's Dynasty, so it's long-term. Look, Josh Allen is the number one fantasy quarterback. He's the number one Dynasty quarterback, at least to us. He is 28 years old. He has a different play style than Patrick Mahomes. Like, yeah, I get it. Last year was rough for Mahomes. We all kind of expect that will correct and he will bounce back eventually. But Mahomes is, while mobile and can run around, he's not giving us, you know, a huge amount of his.
He's not going to give us 500.
Right, yeah. His point production is not coming from just running or a huge amount of it. Cam Newton.
I was going to bring up the name.
Cam Newton seems to be the most relevant comp, which Cam Newton had some other stuff. Like, he had more injuries than Josh Allen has had so far. Like, Josh Allen has, for that play style, has been very healthy, where Cam Newton had injuries on the field. You know, he had even though he seemed to Superman right out of it, he had that car accident, and he had some overall, I think, bigger problems. But Cam Newton gave us essentially 7 years of Superman. And then after that, it was a rapid decline.
I don't know if you remember this, Mike.
Okay, give it to me.
And you've got the best memory of the bunch. But going into the 2018 season, you were very out on Cam Newton, who had just been the number 2 quarterback. He was the number 2 quarterback. And you kept telling people, look, this play style doesn't last forever. Cam Newton is about to be 29 years old. And while some quarterbacks are playing to 40, some quarterbacks, you don't think about a 32-year-old quarterback as old yet. 33,
right.
no
that's
problem.
It's not the age cliff for them.
But for the mobile rushing quarterback, and you had a bunch of data, and you talked about it, I don't know, a dozen times that year. And then Cam Newton goes out and was awesome. He throws 3,300 yards. He rushes over 100 times. He's the quarterback 11, had a great season. And so you chirped a little less going into that next season. That 2018 season, that was his last.
That was the year 7, right?
He was done. Yes. After that, you were a year early, but everything you were saying was actually 100% accurate. And then in 2019, the next season, he was done. He never finished decent again ever. He was irrelevant for fantasy for the rest of his career, and then he only played 3 comically bad seasons from then on out, from team to team, going to New England and then back to Carolina. So yeah, I mean, it is – I know where you're going, but it's worth a conversation with Josh Allen, which I think is why Andy just traded Josh Allen for Kyler and a 1.
Right.
Because, I mean, Josh Allen should be the quarterback 1 this year.
Yes, and look, he's had seasons, 4,500 passing yards, 37 touchdowns, 4,436. So, like, the passing numbers are there. I'm just saying we're all so positive that Josh Allen is the number 1 guy. Is there a world where in 2 years you look back and Josh Allen is just like the QB4, QB5, where he's not like Josh Allen is lapping the field in points per game. Last year he was 23 points per game. Jalen Hurts, who had a very great fantasy football season, was at 21. Like, and then it drops down to 20 points for Dak. Like, Josh Allen was a hero at the quarterback position. And so I'm just, should we keep him? I guess you keep him at 1, but it's like, is the time, is the clock ticking?
It's funny. He is still my number 1 in redraft, obviously. I think if I was in a dynasty league and I'm looking at the quarterback position, I would probably take Patrick Mahomes over him, because I assume Patrick Mahomes is going to play a lot longer. But I think taking it back to the Cam Newton situation, and I say, okay, if that year going into the year 29 season, you had traded Cam because he was coming off the number 2 quarterback, you could have got a haul.
Yes, you could. Yeah,
and you missed out on that really solid season that he had. You didn't get it because you traded him away, and he was still good, and then he fell off. Were you happy that you traded him and got out? Because I would imagine it was probably a huge win.
A couple years later, yeah.
Right, but yeah, the long-term value of your dynasty roster was probably a huge win at that point. I mean, that's kind of like what we talk about with wide receivers and running backs, where it's like, I brought this up on the main show, where A.J. Brown is going to dominate this year. He's going to dominate. He's 27 years old. I think Kellen Moore's going to be great. And at the end of this season, if I have A.J. Brown, I'm looking to flip him for a young stud wide receiver and a 1, because he's still young enough where he's going to dominate the next year. But the time is coming, and you either trade a year before it's too late or you run out of the equity.
I think it comes down to where do you want to tier down. And so some of the players that we're going to talk about, it's figuring out, can I get, like Andy did. Andy got Kyler Murray and a first, correct, for Josh Allen?
That is correct.
And those are the kind of decisions you make where you go, okay, Kyler Murray, could he be quarterback 1? I don't know on a season if that's really in the range of outcomes when I look at all these other guys, but top 5 feels like it's very much in play, and you get a first. I mean, the thing about Josh Allen, we brought it up, is the vacated targets. It's the most for any quarterback who's top 5 in ADP. Like, it's wild. And then you kind of have to ask yourself the question, like, I could see a year from now this team looking different than it does now. Like, they have some players that I think are not going to be here long term. I'm not a big Joe Brady fan. I think over time people figure him out. So I just wonder with this team, there's enough variables in play. Let's say he does finish as QB4, QB5 this season. It's a great season, but I think I'm with you. I think I lean more into Mahomes. I love Hurts. Maybe I'm a little too much into what Kellen Moore's going to do, but I'm a big fan of those. But you can't really go wrong in this tier. I think it's just more saying, like, what is it going to cost you if you have one of the lower tier guys to move up? So, Jason, you did bring up this point with Hurts the other day that he's literally had a different OC almost every year of his entire life.
The only year of his entire life that he had an OC the same the following season was the second year of Shane Steichen, when he was like the league winner in fantasy football. So come on, Kellen Moore, stay around and let the following year be better. Yeah, I mean, if I had Josh Allen, I could trade him straight up for Jalen Hurts. Just get 3 years younger.
Would you do it?
I would do it.
Man, I don't know that I can do that for one.
You lost Stephon Diggs. You had 15 rushing touchdowns. I mean, I guess that's kind of the same for both parties here. But yeah, just gaining the 3 years. I don't know. You know, if you told me at the end of the year, like, what's the percentage chance that Josh Allen finishes 1, or Patrick Mahomes finishes 1, or Jalen Hurts finishes 1, I mean, it might not be 33, 33, 33, but it's going to be close. It's not going to be like 60, 30, 10.
Right, but I'm saying if it's 1-for-1, I'm not going to take what I perceive as a percentage downgrade.
I actually think what I'm learning from this episode is that I'm going to move Josh Allen to my third startup quarterback.
Whew. Okay.
He's certainly my number one in redraft right now still because, he did lap the field last year. But I think when you factor in the age and the play style, I would rather have 3 more years of Jalen Hurts. It's not like even if Jalen Hurts doesn't outscore Josh Allen this year, if you look at the next 4 years, it's not like you're going down to a player that you can't win a championship with. You can win championships with Jalen Hurts, no problem. And then you just tack on years to the end? Yeah, I've convinced myself. Great argument, Jason.
This episode is brought to you by Jason and Jason's thoughts. So let's go to tier 2, and I'm calling this one. So the first one, tier 1, was just the fantasy goats. The 3. But tier 2, I'm calling the Moonlanders because, these 3 could go bonkers. We saw Lamar for NFL purposes go crazy last year. For fantasy, he was good. I don't know if I'd call him great, but in this tier, I have Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud, and Anthony Richardson. And I think we all are very bullish, the 3 of us, on Anthony Richardson, on Shane Steichen, speaking of, as a play caller, and just what it could go to as a runner. And then CJ Stroud, we love as a player. In redraft, we're a little weary about what his ADP was, but I think he's appropriately in this tier for this group. So how do you see these 3, Mike? And is there one that you prefer above the other?
Man, so Lamar's 27.5. So, it's like all the things that we're talking about with Josh Allen, the runner. Although Lamar is a different style of runner, more of a finesse type of a player because he's not Josh Allen sized. Anthony Richardson is absolutely the moonshot. There are still lots of questions, lots of concerns. We saw him, really just 2 full games, and you saw a lot of the inaccuracies that you saw as him as a prospect. So that stuff has to fix. And Josh Allen, of course, ruins everything for everybody because Josh Allen was so inaccurate and then got fixed. And yet he's like one of the only guys who actually
he's the example.
And so you're like, well,
there was Josh Allen and there was
but still,
but Josh Allen did it.
And if Josh Allen could do it, Anthony Richardson can maybe do it. He at least has a great coach to try and help turn things around. So I have Anthony Richardson at the top of that because he is a difference maker to me. Where CJ Stroud, I still have my questions of can he actually be an every year difference maker at the quarterback position. He could be a top 5 guy. That's fine. But the QB5 compared to the top 3 QBs is not like the QB5 is closer, to like QB9 than they are to QB3 of making an impact of winning you weeks.
You're talking about Justin Herbert. That's what you're talking about. Justin Herbert is a world-class top NFL quarterback.
We love Justin Herbert.
We love Justin Herbert. He's fantastic. And here's his fantasy finishes over the year. He's had a fantasy finish of the quarterback 2. That's a league winner. The quarterback 9, then the quarterback 11. Those are good. Those are all right.
Yeah.
They're not winning you a championship when you're the quarterback 11. Obviously in a super flex becomes more important. If you're starting 24, the quarterback 11 matters a lot more than, if you're starting 12 and you're the second worst of the 12 best. So, CJ Stroud, if I guess I don't believe that he will be Patrick Mahomes. Like, Patrick Mahomes is the only one that you can reliably believe year in, year out that he has a very realistic shot of finishing as the number 1 quarterback. Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Dak, whoever you want to put in there that are mostly quarterbacks that are slinging it from the pocket. You're hoping for that quarterback 5 usually.
Right.
So and Mahomes is also a one of one. So and there's a lot of question marks here. You know, where I talked about Jordan Love and the risk that you're taking when you take a guy that you're not sure about. But that's where it's like Anthony Richardson's cheat code of mobility, the ability to have rushing touchdowns and rushing yardage, it just gives me what makes me feel good. So I'm more confident in Anthony Richardson than I am with C.J. Stroud for fantasy. Obviously, if I'm a general manager in the league, I'm taking C.J. Stroud 100 out of 100 times, which is why I hate this scoring in fantasy, because I think
you hate this game.
It's just
what a game.
Well, it's so dumb. We shouldn't be drafting Anthony Richardson over C.J. Stroud if we're trying to like have the game reflect what's on the field. It's just true. Like it's gross to be like
what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't want to draft Anthony Richardson.
25 yards per point for rushing quarterbacks.
Yeah. So exactly. But while the game is broken, we will exploit it, and I will draft Anthony Richardson out of this tier. Well, Lamar Jackson.
The thing with Stroud is if you're in a Superflex startup and you take him as a top 5 player, and he does finish at QB9 or QB11 like you were given Herbert, you will be so disappointed that the player that you took didn't give you the outcome of like, okay, in this league, this player needs to be in the top 5. They have to be based on how I drafted. And with Anthony Richardson, you at least have a template of Shane Steichen in Jalen Hurts' sophomore year. Like you were talking about the coordinators that have changed. We do have this exact same situation. He didn't throw a ton. There's only 29 pass attempts per game. But I looked this up. Hurts had the highest percentage of top 12 weeks of any quarterback in the league that year. He only played in 15 games, but he was awesome. Even if Anthony Richardson throws 18 passing touchdowns and he still runs for 10 on the ground, which is what Hurts did, or maybe more like 8, this guy can be a top 5 quarterback. And so in a startup, it's kind of great that he's going a little bit lower, but like, would you take him in the first round of a Superflex startup?
Yeah. Anthony Richardson?
Would you take him ahead of Stroud?
I would, yeah.
I would. It's I say that because like that's my advice, because that is what I would do, but it's very high risk.
Yeah, I have him in a super flex. I'm really glad, but I also get to pair him with Kyler and feel like I have this good combination of mobile quarterbacks. So,
and that's where when you're looking at, I don't blame anyone out there, no one, not a single person. Once you're past the tier 1 guys, like the creme de la creme, if you want to grab a Jamar Chase, you know, a Bijan Robinson, someone that is like, they are young, they are studly, there are no question marks. I don't blame you taking them over even these tier 2 quarterbacks that usually your first like 6, 7, 8 picks are all going to be quarterbacks. I don't blame you. And if you're in a 3 wide receiver full PPR league, which a lot of Superflex leagues are, if it's a Superflex, not a 2 QB, but a Superflex, and it's 3 wide receiver full PPR, the value of wide receivers is undervalued by comparison to quarterbacks. Take those wide receivers. You can even Superflex a wide receiver. I mean, I've been in a Superflex league for the last couple of years where I drafted very late quarterbacks. I loaded up on running backs and wide receivers. I'm loaded at wide receiver. And, you know, I got lucky that Brock Purdy, one of my late guys, hit, but I got unlucky that Kyler got injured. You know, and then I'm rolling out the Joe Flaccos and guys off the waiver wire. I've been in the championship 2 years in a row. You don't have to spend your top most important picks on questionable quarterbacks.
I got an interesting question here.
Let's hear it.
With Jim Harbaugh and his BFF G-Bro, they are now in charge of the Los Angeles Chargers. Is there a world where we get actually more running from Justin Herbert?
This is what I've been saying this for months. Wait,
have
you not listened? Yes,
no.
Yes, I've been.
No, I have not.
I've been saying, and in fact, Giro even mentioned that recently about.
I will check the tape. You have not. This is a great idea. That was just
Kyle. You actually listened to the show.
He did mention it.
Yeah, I mean,
okay,
no,
maybe
but
a long time ago.
What a great thought, Mike. Great thought.
Thank you.
I agree. Justin Herbert is probably going to run more. He's probably going to have more rushing touchdowns than he's ever had before, and more designed runs. Justin Herbert is athletically, he's not that far from Josh Allen.
No, he is not.
Like they're the same size, same speed, same weight. You know, close enough in those metrics. Obviously, that doesn't mean he's mentally built the same.
Josh Allen has got the dog where not that Herbert doesn't, but That hasn't been the play style.
Herbert's not cracking a beer with his teeth. You know what I mean? Like, Josh Allen, I don't think he's ever used his fingers to open a can of beer in his life. That's not cool enough. Josh Allen has no thought about his well-being. But yeah, I do think that Herbert will run more. I'm not saying he's ever going to be a 600-yard rushing player, but I actually think 300, 350 is.
He's hit 300. He hit 300 his sophomore year.
Yeah, I think that's going to happen.
He was at 228 yards last year in just 13 appearances. Just saying, like, the play style of will they? It's not 100% because we saw Alex Smith, not really running a ton, even though, and then later on in his career he was like, oh yeah, no, actually I'm really good at I'm really good at rushing for Mr. Andy Reid. So it just is because of the high T nature, the vibes being so low on the Chargers, and we're just we're talking about comparing these players where Justin Herbert last year, this is a different offense, but last year was 18 points a game. CJ Stroud was 18.4. And like Justin Herbert right now, market-wise, compared to someone like CJ Stroud, is left in the dust. So just, I don't know. Maybe we are. We've said it on the show, but I'm just echoing it. Of maybe we're too low on someone who is actually good.
Yeah,
at football,
and maybe they've got a coach that can put them in situations to score more points. I mean, I do think he does not have. I mean, it's not up for debate. He has worse weapons this year than he had last year, and they're going to run the ball more this year than they did last year. Those things aren't great for fantasy, but sometimes you trust the talent. And even if this is a dynasty startup or something, or even just trade values, Herbert is undervalued this year from a long-term perspective.
Yeah, in the next tier we have Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, and Jordan Love. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll talk about those guys. I'm calling this group QB1s until they ain't, until they're just not anymore, because last year, guys, in this tier, or in this grouping, people were taking Trevor Lawrence. They were taking Justin Fields as guys at the back of the first round thinking, in a Superflex, I have to take these guys. Which,
by the way, just when I'm talking about the risk of Anthony Richardson, Justin Fields is the risk.
Yes.
Like, I feel very confident this year that Anthony Richardson can be a true difference-making fantasy quarterback. And look, because he will absolutely get the full year, and he will get next year. Can he evolve into a true franchise quarterback? That's the question.
Yeah, because I mean, that's the risk, and that's why we're saying, I'm talking about Anthony Richardson and the risk-reward compared to other quarterbacks, but you got to be on the board and make the decision of Anthony Richardson compared to other. Are you going to take Anthony Richardson or CeeDee Lamb? Because last year,
that's not close.
If you took Justin Fields and you bypassed, A.J. Brown or I guess whoever would have been at the back of the first round, everyone now would be like, man, I'm so glad I didn't take Justin Fields and I've got CeeDee Lamb or Amon-Ra St. Brown or one of these guys on my roster. There is a lot of risk with Richardson.
Yeah, and I wrote this super long article talking about his range of outcomes, and in there is players like Fields where it's like, this can happen. Don't just say, hey, we have him ranked here, nothing bad's ever going to happen. But at least we trust the Colts. We trust Shane Steichen a little bit more. We like the weapons a little bit more in Indianapolis than we did in Chicago. But in this tier we're talking, I wanted to bring back up Jordan Love because you mentioned him at the top of the show, Jason. Are you saying that people will see last year, see the contract, and just say he's locked in forever? Because I think he's appropriately ranked. We have him as QB10 in startups. They let him throw a ton in the red zone last year. I mean, just like over and over again. They had 4 rushing touchdowns by the running backs total on the year. That's not repeatable. That's not going to happen. So touchdown rate is the thing that I look at with Jordan Love. He runs a lot more than he did in college. Like, he didn't run at all at Utah State. And all of a sudden, they're letting him run a little bit more. It's more of like a little bonus.
Yeah, it's a little sprinkle.
Little kiss. So do you think that he is appropriately priced, but then where he's going in draft, it's like there's just other guys I want to build with in a startup.
I think he's great to be the quarterback 10. When I keep espousing this, like people are overdoing it with quarterbacks in a super flex league, it really is like him being the quarterback 10th off the board, that seems great. But where the quarterback 10 is going off the board in super flex leagues, that feels broken to me. There's just too much risk considering who's on the board. I'm going to give you some ADPs. Okay, so Jordan Love right now is in average draft price in super flex leagues. He's the quarterback 10, right where we've got him ranked. Seems appropriate. But he's going right next to Marvin Harrison Jr.
No way.
And Jahmyr Gibbs. So you've got to pick your poison. And in a super flex league, everyone's picking the poison of a quarterback. And I'm saying that is exactly what you just picked. Poison. And poison.
Everyone's allergic to
turns
poison.
out 100% of people are allergic to poison. Good Spitballers pod reference there. But yeah, I mean, like I'm going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. over Jordan Love every time. I'll probably take, Dynasty startups, running backs scare me. But Puka Nacua, A.J. Brown, these are all players going after Jordan Love. And there are question marks. So, yeah, I think we've said that piece enough, but that's another example of it.
Yeah, and I'm happy for Jordan Love, happy for the person to wait, love the team. Like, I'm excited to watch the Packers, excited to watch all the wide receivers, but I think where he goes makes me feel a little bit weary. Now, in a one-quarterback league, right now he's our quarterback one. We got him super cheap a couple years ago, so I feel really good in the Ballers main dynasty to have that. But let's go to the next tier, because these are the young names that we have ranked here, and yet a year from now, one to maybe two of these guys are going to hit rock bottom. And I can't tell you which ones. I can tell you who it's not. It's not going to be Jayden Daniels. He can do nothing at all, and he'll be fine.
Yeah, it's not going to be Caleb Williams. He could do nothing, and he'll be fine value-wise, retaining value. You just talked about where Trevor Lawrence was last year. Goodness gracious, he has held on. When you're drafted to be a generational prospect, Caleb Williams could suck for probably 3 years and be like, he's Caleb Williams. You'll still be able to trade him for something.
The only thing I'll add to that is there was a quarterback taken number 1 overall last year who really sucked.
Yeah, but he wasn't a generational talent. Agreed. Mike and I both were saying he shouldn't have been if we were the GMs, we would have taken Stroud over Bryce Young. No one is saying that this year. No one was really saying that in the Trevor Lawrence year. It was, Bryce Young was up for debate. Not everybody loved Bryce Young. He had all the flaws that you see on the NFL field. So I think it's different. Just because he went 101, like back in the Jameis Winston 101 days, that never felt the same as an Andrew Luck 101.
Yeah, it was not up for debate for Dave Tepper. Dave said, this is the player we will be taking.
Oh, Dave.
All right, so in this tier, I'm calling it tier 4, back in quarterback 1 and young bucks, it's Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, J.J. McCarthy, Dak Prescott, Drake Maye, and Tua. So some guys that you would feel really good as your quarterback 1 in Dak and Tua, and then 4 rookies here. And the rookie that I wanted to bring up in this group was Drake Maye, because I feel like I haven't really thought about him very much since we did our pre-draft evaluation till we talked about the NFL draft. And now I'm kind of staring at our rankings and staring where he goes. Like, I get it. I get where he's going. But a year from now, is he going to be worth more or less? Like, that's the conversation I want to bring up in this tier, because there's going to be some movement. So here's my worries, okay? Because I think the worries are easier to bring up, and then he could kill it based on raw talent, because I loved what I saw in film. But this team didn't throw the ball very much at all last year. And now they're bringing in Alex Van Pelt, who has kind of always been a let's run the ball, not use a ton of motion. And, man, I'm finding all of these tweets from beat reporters that are basically saying, like, it got ugly today, or, oh, they had to run laps again and do push-ups because that was today. Drake Maye had to do some push-ups.
Yeah, it's tough because the Patriots have a really good defense and they've got a really bad offense, like personnel-wise. So Drake Maye in practice at training camp is set up to fail over and over.
Sure.
He's got to, but that's also, iron sharpens iron. That could be good for the young man. I think he loses value. Now, obviously, one of the biggest comps for him coming out of college, the way that his draft stock kind of fell from the year prior, the raw talent is Justin Herbert. if he ends up with a rookie Justin Herbert year, you're going to feel bad for bypassing him. But if I had to bet whether he has that or not on the Patriots with, endless wide receiver 3 options on that roster, I don't believe Drake Maye is going to gain in value. I don't think he's going to come into the next year and be like, have had such a sensational, a CJ Stroud, the Baker Mayfield, the Justin Herbert. I think he'll be exactly, he'll be a little bit less valued than he is now, but still important because he's young. I'm probably bypassing him in most drafts where he is in startup.
I would say he could have a light version of Josh Allen's rookie year.
That's funny you bring that up because I think it is a comp.
It like Drake Maye has more madman in his psychosis than you real. Like he runs more than you think that he actually does. You had 9 rushing touchdowns last year, 7 the year before that, like a decent amount of rushing attempts to the point of like I mean like the madman isn't like I'm going to make something happen the way that Josh Allen frequently has that mentality of I'm going to do it myself. And Drake Maye has athletic gifts, like a huge arm. I think it can be it's probably going to be a slow climb for Drake Maye because this offense, this is we are rebuilding. Like there are no foundational pieces here. They went in on Jalen Polk at the top of round 2, as in this is the guy who's going to hopefully grow with Drake Maye and become our number 1 wide receiver. They take Javon Baker a couple rounds later, which he's kind of buried on the depth chart right now, but the drum beat has been getting better for him as well. So I think Drake Maye gains in value, but that's because of where I have him. Like I have Drake Maye very low
with no value.
Yeah, I have him with no value. So I think that he has. I think he has the most to climb just because of where I have it. I have him valued where you and Andy have him ranked. There's not much wiggle room for him to go up, I think.
Yeah, this Patriots team last year, they had 13 pass attempts inside the 10. And the last team to have that few was Josh Allen's Bills team, who had basically no pass catchers. It was Zay Jones, who ran a ton of routes and was very inefficient. Kelvin Benjamin when he was a Bill.
Oh, yeah.
And then, an older LaShawn McCoy, and then Charles Clay, who he keeps showing up, guys. Charles Clay is just forever. It's going to be necessary.
Well, he's necessary.
So, like, you look at this team, it's a similar situation. It's like, okay, who are the dudes on this team that are going to be difference makers? So a year from now, are we going to say, okay, this team just paid an older running back. They don't really have an established one. I mean, maybe Polk is good, but not great.
Yeah, we don't know yet.
And then all of those factors in this team having the worst record in the league potentially is going to push him down. So it's tough because I love the player, and I'm starting to loosely say a year from now, I don't know if this is a player that I want to invest in where, like you said, Jayden Daniels, Caleb Williams can fart around and they're going to be fine.
I feel like it all comes down to Polk and Maye. Like those two together, they're going to have a really surprisingly productive rookie season, in which case their value will be up next year, or, they're rookies that struggle with no other real offensive weapons to take the heat off of them. And then the arrow will be down.
Yeah, and I just want to finish off these tiers. We're going to have a whole article on the website that goes through our Superflex tiers, but the last tier we're going to talk about is tier 5, and it's Trevor Lawrence, who's dropped a ton from last year, Brock Purdy, and Jared Goff. And all of these players I would love to have as my QB2 in a Superflex. Like I would be ecstatic if these were these guys. Lawrence got paid, Goff got paid, Purdy will get paid in the next year.
Yes, he will.
The Bills coming. So
you know who I'd love to have as my quarterback 2 in a Superflex league? I'd love to have Matthew Stafford and Kirk Cousins. And I mean, I'm just saying, grab
for 2024.
Yes, I'm just saying, it's okay. I mean, first of all, Brock Purdy, heck yeah. I mean, Brock Purdy is so undervalued. He's criminally undervalued right now. He's 24 years old. He's got a talent around him, coaching staff there. He's going to get a big contract soon. I would want all these guys as my quarterback 2 over them. But my point is, if you can grab 2 of those guys, if you end up with a Kyler Murray early in the first, or maybe you had an early pick and you've got a Josh Allen, you've got a Patrick Mahomes, a Hurts, if you're lucky enough to get one of those top 3 picks, then just keep loading up, and then later on grab a combo, grab Kirk Cousins and Stafford or Geno, and grab 2 of them, double tap them several rounds later, and bypass some of these middling guys that aren't going to really move the needle for you. Just my strategy.
Jason's getting the value combo, the combo deal on the menu. I respect that. All right, one more segment.
And I think it is important. You in a Superflex, you want to try to have that third starting quarterback.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
It's hard. Not everybody will have one or will have the third. But.
Yeah. Mathematically, you are correct.
Take it or leave it.
All right, let's finish this off by talking about players, as we've done every week. Who are you afraid of is going to drop most in value? Who's going to gain or hold steady? And I heard earlier, it sounded like you both think slightly that Josh Allen is going to slowly drop a little bit in value. You're still going to take him, but not at QB1. Jason, you've changed.
I think that's a legitimate and fair name to bring up. Now, will he lose value this offseason? I don't think so. So that wouldn't be the name that I would give you. I would trade him after this offseason. The name that I would think loses value this offseason would probably be.
Well, it can also be who you're afraid they're going to lose value. Because the fear is Richardson for me.
Well, that is, yeah. I mean, his range of outcomes.
He's terrifying.
Him losing value would be a calamitous collapse of value. So he would certainly be number one. I think the person I'm most afraid of is probably Jordan Love, just because of sample size. And I don't think it's going to happen, but that's my fear. And then gaining value has to be Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy, because
he's mine too.
Because he's paid pennies. I mean, dynasty managers still are waiting. They're just holding their breath, like, I don't know. The team's not invested in him. He was a 7th-round pick, the last pick in the draft. I know he's been okay. He's a pocket passer, but for where he's going, for the bag he's about to get, I mean, the Niners are going to win games. Like, the Niners are going to be a 10-plus win team for sure. And so at the end of this season, he's going to get a big bada-boom bag. And then dynasty-wise, people will be really confident and feel like he's locked in for, 7, 8, 9 years.
And I would say, like, it's the same 2 players we keep talking about, but it's Stroud of, like, I think Stroud is fantastic. He's heading into year 2. He should get better. There is still the lingering fears of his splits of, like, he beat up bad teams. He beat them up. And then most good defenses, which, because in the playoff game, he had a great game against the Cleveland Browns. That's a good defense.
Mm-hmm.
The Ravens dismantled him.
You almost look at that game and you go, oh, he was injured in that. Was that the game he got injured? And I think it might have been.
You're thinking about the Jets game.
Oh, that was the one.
The Jets game in the rain where he was outplayed by Jets QB. Like, Stroud, like, again, the Jets dismantled him. It was a bad environment to play in, but the other quarterback didn't look as bad as him. I was just saying it's year 2. He should get better, but that's just the fear of the good defenses figured him out quickly, and he still has a lot to grow.
Yeah, in terms of losing, I mentioned the rookie quarterbacks. I bet at least 2 of them will drop just based on odds and how things look historically. And then I just love that tier. If you have Goff, you have Purdy. We've kind of said that over and over again. You got to feel happy about that. Boys, I do need to warn you. Next week on this show, we'll be getting a little bit. We got the Nasty Boys of the Summer episode. It's going to be
down
good
in that
stuff.
mucky muck.
It's going to be really good. We'll see you again next week. Make sure you get the Ultimate Draft Kit, ultimatedraftkit.com. We'll talk to you again next week.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Footballers Dynasty Podcast. If you want to take your dynasty skills to the next level, check out thefantasyfootballers.com.